There is 3 years since I started doing Nakama here at YouTube, and now we are gonna rebuild it from scratch. So, before anything else, I'm gonna review the basic functionality of Nakama. So here in the homepage, you can log in either by your username or with these two providers. On the homepage, you can see posts from the people you follow and also posts from everybody else. On the notifications page, you can get real-time notifications for all the activity. So if someone comments on a post or mentions you or follows you. On the search page, you can search for users, basically. And finally, you have your user page where you can see your post and you can do some basic settings. On a single post, you can add reactions and you can comment. And of course, you can delete your comments and subscribe to new notifications. And that covers the basic functionality. In the new version, we are gonna keep those, but we're also gonna add groups, which are gonna work similar to subreddits. And also we're gonna change the whole frontend, because right now the frontend on Nakama uses a lot of JavaScript, and we're gonna change it to use basic server render templates. Alright, so for the database, we're gonna continue using CockroachDB. So make sure to install it. And for the backend programming language, we're gonna use Golang. So I already created a new branch. I removed everything, so we're gonna start from scratch. So like I said before, we are gonna do the frontend now using server render templates. So that's what we're gonna do first. The first page we're gonna do is the login page. So this is gonna be your login page. It's very basic, just a form with 2 inputs, an email address and a username. Now, because we're gonna have many pages, I'm gonna take this base layout and move it into a new template. So I'm gonna take all this common markup, put it here. So this is gonna be your basic layout. So now for login page, to use this layout template, we need to import it. So if you're new to Go templates, this is how it works. In this part, it's basically importing this file. So it's like this. All right. And this part is importing this one. So it's basically like this. Do you see? It's what we had before, but now we can reuse this basic template. All right, now we need to render this. I'm gonna create a function that is gonna parse those templates. We are gonna embed those templates into the code. Make sure to embed both the include directory and the root template directory. So make sure you only parse the includes first and then your page. So now we can render our login page and we can define our data. Now, all the code for our web package is gonna be on this handler struct. So now to render the login page, we're gonna do that inside a method of that struct. We are gonna render a lot of templates, so I'm gonna create a utility function for this. I'm gonna use a buffer to render the template first and finally write the response back. So the reason I use a buffer here is because this part, when we execute the template, can fail. So if we try to write directly to the response writer, that we can pass the response writer here. We cannot send a response back in case of error. So that's why we pass a buffer first. And now on this final part, this can error, but at this point we cannot send a response back. So we cannot do this, for example. So we are gonna just log the error down. For that, we are gonna need a logger. We're gonna use a standard log package. That should do it. We're gonna also log the error here. Notice that we are not doing anything with this error, because this error can contain some details that we don't want to share with the user. And now we can log the error for us. Okay, so now we can go to the render logging function and use this render template function. There we go. Now we need a handler. Our handler is basically gonna call the render logging function with some empty data and a 200 status code. Now we need to register this handler into the router. We're gonna init all the routes here. So for the router, we are gonna use a library of mine. This one is similar to the max that comes with Go, but you can pass parameters in the URL, and you can do some REST style routes. Once we have that, we can register our handler. This page is gonna be shown on the /login URL. And that's it. Now this handler struct, I wanted to implement the HTTP handler interface. And we want to initialize all the routes here. So we're gonna make sure to call init only once. And then once the handler is initialized with this router, we can call its own serve HTTP. All right. So now we just need a main.go file to set up all of this. All right, let's come here. So the only dependency for handler is the logger. So additional to the standard flags for the logger, we are gonna use the file name. That should be. Now we can create a server. And we can pass our handler. For the address, we are gonna take that from the flags. That should be. And that's it. Finally, we are gonna just print here a log message, like so. And we're gonna change also the default port to be 4000. Now let's give it a try. All right, this is running on port 4000. And we don't have anything on the root page, but if we go to the login page, we see our login form. All right, this doesn't look very nice, so we are gonna take this Water CSS, which is a framework for CSS without classes. So here in the layout, we are just gonna include it, like so. We can refresh the page, and that's it. All right. I just want to show a placeholder here on the inputs. All right, much better. This form is sent through a post request, so we need a handler for that. We don't have this function, so since we are still on early development, I'm gonna make a login that's very insecure. So this is gonna take an email and username, and it's gonna create a user for us, and it's gonna log us in. All right. This is not gonna check any password or second factor. It's just for development. All right. So here the first step is to parse the form. That's it. And now we can write our logic. For this, I'm gonna use another file that's gonna be on the root of our repository here. And we are gonna make a login function that's gonna be part of a service. So this is a function we're gonna use. So let's go to our handler. And here at the handlers track, we are gonna require the service. That's it. And now from the handler, we can call the login method on the service. To login, we need to pass a context and some parameters. We can take the context from the request, and the parameters can be taken from the form. So the username is optional, so we need to parse it accordingly. So I'm gonna create a utility function. And there we go. So the username is only gonna be nil if the key is not there. Otherwise, we're gonna return a pointer to the string. All right, now to perform the login, we are gonna need some users. So we're gonna need Cockroach running. So in the terminal, you can launch Cockroach with this command. Make sure to have it installed and start a single node with insecure mode, and you can pass a listen address if you like. By running this is gonna create a Cockroach data folder, and it's gonna give you a connection address. So take this one, copy it, and we're gonna use it in our main.go. And we can pass our connection right here as the default value. Now we need to make a database connection. And that's it. Now I'm gonna use a tool to generate the queries to the database called SQLC. Make sure to install it. It's pretty simple because it's written in Go. So the first thing you're gonna need is a configuration file called sqlc.yaml. So let's create it. And let's take this as an example. Let's copy it. And there. So we need to define a schema.sql file and a query.sql file. But I'm gonna change it to put it into the root directory. And this is gonna be called queries. And the package is gonna be Nakama. And the directory is the root directory. All right, so let's create those files. So this schema.sql is basically your tables. For now, I will just make the user table. And that's it. Notice that for the ID, I'm using a varchar and not a UID type or an incremental type, because I'm gonna use XID. XID are unique IDs of 20 characters length, and they are sortable. One of the main reasons I'm doing the refactor on Nakama is because we were using UID before, and this is not sortable. So for pagination, I was doing a slow query. So with this, we're gonna have more faster pagination, all right? So now we need to create a queries.sql file. All right, on this file, we're gonna write all the queries we're gonna perform to the database, separated by a line of comment. This is a special format that SQLC uses. So you have to define a name give it a name, and the type of query you are performing. So this query right now is gonna retrieve a single row. Alright, that's it for the insert user query. So this uses this special notation to name your params. This is gonna come very handy. Let's write the rest of it. Alright, I think that's all we need for now. Notice that for this query, to check if a username is taken, we are using the I like operator instead of the equal operator, because we want to make sure that usernames are unique independently of the case. Alright. So now we just need to run in another terminal SQL generate. Alright, let's check it out. This created a models file with our user type. This is basically our users table, but in a Go fashion. Also created this DB file, which contains basically the query struct, and the methods are defined here, and those are in this queries.sql Go file. So our query to create a user is right here, and this is being used here in the create user method, and the parameters are the one we define with this @ symbol. So yeah, that's it. SQL generated all this boilerplate for us, and we just need to maintain this queries file. Cool. So now we can come to the login file and use the queries now. So in the service, we are gonna make a reference to the queries. So the first step is gonna be check if the user exists with the email. If it exists, we return it back. If it doesn't exist, we are gonna require that the username is not nil. If it's nil, we're gonna return an error. If it's not nil, we're gonna check that the username is not taken. And finally, we're gonna create the user using both the email and the username. All right, let's do it. So here in the login function, we need to return the user. So this is the first part. If the user exists with this email, we return it back here. Now, we need to create a user otherwise, so we need the username. So if the username is nil, we are gonna return an error. All right, now we need to check that the username is not taken. All right, that's it. So at this point, we know that the username is not nil because we are checking it right here. So we can use it safely here. And now at the end, we can create the user. So for the create user, we need to pass the user ID. All right. So actually, let me do a change here. In the user params, I'm gonna rename this to user ID. See, now it's reflected right here. All right. For the user ID, like I said before, we're gonna use XID. So we need to import this library. All right. So we can create a user ID now. And that's it. Now we can return our user. There we go. Now this login method is done. And we can use it from our handler. So right here, we're gonna continue. All right, at this point, we should have a user. So what we're gonna do is to save this user into a cookie. We're gonna use sessions for that. So I'm gonna import this sessions package and add the reference to the sessions in our handler. So now in the init function, I'm gonna initialize the session. We need to make sure to enable the session by using its middleware. All right, that's it. So now in the login handler, we can come here at the bottom and we can put the user in the session with the user key. All right, and we can redirect back maybe to the homepage. That's it. So now I know this is gonna fail because the session package uses gov to encode the user. So this struct needs to be registered. So in the handler, again, right here, I'm gonna call gov.register or user type. Now we need to go to the main.go and create our queries. Once we have the queries, we can create our service and we can pass the queries. And now to the handler, we can pass our service and the session key, which needs to be a secret. So we're gonna take that from the flags too. All right, now we just need to make sure the tables in our database are there. So I'm gonna create a new migrate file. So I'm gonna embed the schema right here. For this to work, we need to import the embed package, like so. And that should be it. Now we can call this migrate SQL function from the main.go. I think around here. All right, let's give it a try. We are missing the Postgres driver. All right, let's try again. Looks like it's working. So let's go back here and let's try it. So let's pass an email, a username, and try to log in. All right, I don't see any errors and it redirected back to the home page. So I can assume that it worked. But let's try to show the logged in user in the home page. All right. So let's come here to the templates and create a new home page. And now let's come here to the web package and create a home file. Here we're gonna parse the home template and define some data for the template, which is gonna be actually some common data for all the templates. So I'm gonna call it session. So the session data is gonna have information about the logged in user. So that's it. So now here in the home, we need a function to render the home template. And that's it. And now we need a handler. And from the handler, we just need to execute this render home with the session data. So to get the session data, I'm just gonna take it from the request. So this session from request method is gonna take the user from the actual cookie and try to set it into a session. And that should be it. Now from the home handler, we can set the session to this function. So like so, there. So now we just need to register this in the router, like so. Let's restart the server. And now in the home page, all right, we don't see anything right now, but if we go to the template, we can display the user. So if session is logged in, we can show the user. And maybe show a logout button. Otherwise, we can show a link to the login page. And that's it. Let's restart the server. Oh, all right. Here I forgot this. Okay. We can go home here and refresh, and we are logged in. So let's try to log out. And the logout page is not there, so let's implement it. So the logout handler is gonna remove the user from the session cookie, and it's gonna redirect back to the home page. Let's just register the root and restart the server. And there, we are logged out. We can try to log in again. Actually, this username input, I don't want to show it for everyone. So only if the user doesn't exist, I want to show it. So let's try that. So right here in the login handler, if we here, when we try to log in and we get the user not found error, we want to show that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is export those errors. So like so. Actually, we need to export them. So there. And here I'm gonna replace that. And also here. There. So now we can perform a check here. So we can check if we did get one of those two errors. And we can try to render the form again. We can pass the error and we can pass the form. And that's it. So now we can come to the login template and display the error to a user. That will display the error to a user, and also I want to pre-populate the inputs with the form data. So like so. And like I said before, this username input is only going to be displayed in case of those two errors. So right here, we're going to perform an additional check. And there we go. Let's try again. So the username input is not being shown by default. So let's try with a new user. Like this. And let's try to log in. Oh, all right. I think this is because right here when we call with, we are overriding the pipeline. So here we need to use the dollar symbol, like so. Let's try again. There we go. So now the error is right here and we can set the username. Let's try with the same username from before. And it says that the username is taken. And you can see that the fields are already populated with the old value. So we can change it now. And we can log in. And yeah, that's it. Let's quickly iterate over what we did. So we are using a template layout. We added some nice CSS. We handled errors from the forms. We are using sessions to store the user in. And we abstracted our core logic into a service struct. And we are using SQL-C to avoid boilerplate in the SQL queries. And all the config is taken from the flags, so they are automatically documented, like you can see here. So if you want to know how the server works, you can ask for the help. And it's gonna tell you how to set up everything. So that's all for this video. On the next one, I'm gonna add some validation to the form and write some tests. So make sure to leave any question down below and I'm gonna see you there. See ya.